So this is what white boy summer used to look like. And it was a frequent sighting indeed. In this case, we're looking at Confederate flag waving students in Birmingham, Alabama, singing Dixie as they terrorized two black girls on their way to school. And this is what it looks and sounds like now.
The more they throw at Donald Trump, the more they throw at us, the more we support him.
And the solution is to deport every single illegal alien who came to this country under Joe Biden's regime.
For Joe Biden and Dr. Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, all in the Biden, they're a bunch of feral dogs, right? It's a family of feral dogs. We're going to have to fumigate. It's going to be a new day. And MAGA will run things. They're going to know that MAGA is not only ascendant, MAGA is in charge. It's very simple. Victory or death.
Dude, aren't you in jail yet? Joining me now is friend of the show, Jason Johnson, professor of global journalism and communications at Morgan State University and host of the podcast, A Word with Jason Johnson. Jason Johnson, White Boy Summer, what's not to love?
Oh, quite a bit, actually. And no particular offense to any particular white boys, but if the first white guys you can think of are like Jack Harlow and John B., I think that's an insult to like real white boys who know hip hop, like, I don't know, Beastie Boys. I don't know. Maybe it's just my perception. Maybe even, heck, I'd go with Jelly Roll before I'd go with those guys.
Okay, so let's talk about this convention, because it is sort of interesting, the juxtaposition of Trump being in a black church with no black parishioners and some black Republicans who are like MAGA Republicans, so they're not like us type of blacks. And then he goes right over to the place where where the food fight was between the people you saw on that stage and David Duke, who said it was too much for him, he couldn't stay, and Nick Fuentes, who got kicked out. So they're fighting. Your thoughts?
You know, it's amazing. You know, there's the famous joke when you're a kid of like, this is a picture of a cow eating grass, but the cow's gone because the grass is gone. It's just white. Like, that's what these conventions are. It's just white people. It's just angry white people. And you could put a couple of triangles in there for their pointy hats. This is the thing. This is Joy White so amazing to me, that we're forced into these idiotic narratives every single campaign season about Donald Trump, or most Republicans in general, and their attempts to connect with black people. First off, they're driven by wishful thinking on the part of Republicans. No Republican has made any real attempt to recruit black voters since, I don't know, Michael Steele, right? And Reince Priebus didn't really want to help him in doing that. Sorry, we got to be honest about that. It's been almost 10 years now. Every attempt by the Trump administration or the Trump campaign has been disingenuous. And then it's bolstered also by these ridiculous polls that we see that say, oh, 25% of African Americans are going to vote for Donald Trump. Most of these are not functional polling firms. And if it's not Cornell, and it's not Hit Strategies, and it's not the Grio, right, it's probably not a reliable poll. So that's what we're seeing, Joy. It's the beginning of silly season, and black folks, unfortunately, are on the menu.
Yeah, I mean, let's just note that the Times Siena poll that everyone got so excited about had like 900 total respondents, so like 90 some odd black people. That's not enough black people to poll whether they are, like McDonald's. Like, that's just not enough people in a sample to say, oh, 23% historic. But when you actually look at some polling that gets more specific and drills down a little bit more, so USA Today actually did a poll, and they actually plussed up the sample to about 500 respondents, which is a little bit better, at least for a poll of African Americans. That's pretty big. And they polled in the swing states of Pennsylvania and Michigan specifically, and they found that, surprise, surprise, Biden is still the first or second choice of the vast majority, while most would avoid Trump. And while there is a softness in Biden support and people have some reservations about him and have some interest in third parties, guess who got no more support than he did before? Trump. These voters despise Trump. When you actually poll and ask a significant number, they don't like him, despite the gold shoes, weirdly enough, and being a criminal.
Right. Despite the gold shoes, but despite the 34 counts, beside the sort of rappers who danced around him, who he's probably paying off one way or another. And this is the thing, Joy. We can continue with the McDonald's thing. You remember those old commercials? You wouldn't go to a burger place for fried chicken, right? You wouldn't go to a Chinese food restaurant for pizza. Why would you go to polling firms that don't really know much about the black community to get polling on the black community? It doesn't make any sense, and it's often not reliable. And there is a huge difference from a statistical standpoint, from a campaign strategy standpoint. There's a difference between between soft support and interest in the other party. I can say right now that I wasn't hugely in favor of the Boston Celtics, but I definitely didn't like the Dallas Mavericks. These are completely different things, right? And that's what's happening in these polling situations. Black people's opinions have not changed of Donald Trump. They've actually hardened. Joe Biden has a much better chance of bringing black support back to him at 2020 levels than Donald Trump does in lifting his numbers past 12%.
And let me ask you, which do you think should we be paying more attention to? Because you have what I've now called blackstro-turfing, where you find like an already existing MAGA person, put them in a chicken joint, and then say, look, magically, black people in this chicken joint love Donald Trump, when they've preordained who's going to be in that room. Or going to a church where the pastor is black, but there's no black people in the room, and then getting the media to pick up on this idea that Trump is courting black voters. And then the black people there are not from Detroit. They're not from the city. They're from somewhere else, and they were bussed in, and they're already Trump supporters. So there's that. Or is what's going to be more compelling the actual image of when you watch MAGA people work? Because when you look at those people inside that Turning Points room, all you hear is rage and hate that for most black people, it feels like the old version of White Boy Summer, when, you know, white people scream at black people for trying to go to school and such.
I don't know if that ever stopped. But here's the other thing, Joy. At least the examples you're giving include actual black people. But what we've seen from a lot of the Trump campaign is AI black folks with 7 fingers, you know, handing out flyers at houses because they can't find any actual black people who support them. Look, if you want to go to a Waffle House in Atlanta at 2 o'clock in the morning, then I think you might actually find some young African-American voters and see what they actually think. But as long as you're going to go to a church, and you're going to go to a church that doesn't have African-American parishioners, and you're going to have media outlets that refuse to actually ask, hey, do you actually go to this church? You're going to have this disingenuous messaging. But Joy, here I think is the most important thing. At the end of the day, it's not going to be a matter of whether black people turn out. Black people tend to turn out in general on presidential elections. They're important local issues. It's going to be whether or not the Democratic Party as a whole can put effort into turnout and in fighting voter suppression in key states like North Carolina and Georgia, and yes, occasionally certain counties in Pennsylvania. Because the vote is going to be there for Joe Biden. The vote is going to be there against Donald Trump. But you've got to make it possible for people to vote and not have everybody try and build houses out of straw and bricks just to get their rights out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a GOTV issue because if voters are not enthusiastic, it is the job of a campaign to get them to the polls. They don't have to fall in love with Joe Biden. They just need to vote to keep our democracy and to keep themselves out of womb slavery if they're women or girls. Jason Johnson, my friend, thank you very much.